Palace coup in Riyadh, what is really happening? While the war against Daesh is drawing to a close in Iraq and Syria, and the war against the pseudo-Kurdistan seems to have been avoided, several states of the greater Middle East are regaining the initiative. Profiting from the fluidity of the moment, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia has brutally eliminated the members of the royal family who may be in a position to contest his power. So not only has the regional balance of power been modified by war, but one of the region's main actors has just changed its objectives. A new period in the Middle East. It is said that nature abhors a vacuum. The defeat of the Islamic Emirate in Iraq and Syria, or Daesh, according to its Arab acronym, which, in quick succession, has just lost Mosul, under the onslaught of the Iraqi army, Raqqa, taken by the U.S. Army, and Deir ez-Zor, liberated by the Syrian army, ends a war and opens a new period. The failure of Masoud Barzani to force recognition for the annexation of Kirkuk by the Kurds of the PDK cancels the project for a new colonial state, a pseudo-Kurdistan, an advance base for the Israeli army against Iran. Although the greater Middle East is devastated, particularly Libya, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Afghanistan, there still remain 4 states capable of advancing their interests: Israel, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Iran. In order to do so, each of them will have to adopt an initiative before the meeting between Presidents Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, which is scheduled to take place during the APEC summit in Da Nang, 8 to 10 November. On 3 November, Israel declared itself ready to protect the Druzes, from the south of Syria, against the jihadists who had just attacked the Syrian village of Haider. Since the beginning of 2017, Tel Aviv has been trying to create a Druze separatist movement in the south of Syria on the model of the one it had built with the Kurds from the north and Iraq. Mossad recruited Syrian Major Khaldoun Zainuddin, who attempted to declare a Druzistan. But he managed to raise only a dozen combatants willing to fight Damascus. On the same day, Turkey gathered the different jihadist organizations from Idlib in order to create a government of national salvation, presided by Mohammed al-Sheikh, and including Riyad al-Azad as vice prime minister. For the governorate of Idlib, Ankara recycled the idea of its Qatari ally, which, in 2012, had already founded an alternative Syrian government under the title of the Syrian National Coalition. There has been no sign from Tehran, probably because the Islamic Republic of Iran is the only one of the 4 great states which has beaten both Daesh and the Barzanis. It therefore has no interest in changing the deal. The surprise came from Riyadh. The royal family has not sought to impose a new regional order, but Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, has shaken up the fossilized structure of his kingdom. The resignation of Saad Hariri. On 4 November at about 11 a.m. UTC, the Lebanese Prime Minister, speaking on the TV channel Al Arabiya, live from the Hotel Ritz in Riyadh, and in the presence of the Saudi Crown Prince MBS, announced his resignation. Reading carefully from the text which had been written for him, Saad Hariri suddenly forgot that he was president of a government which included ministers from Hezbollah. He expressed himself in these terms: "Wherever Iran is present, it sows division and destruction. The proof of this is evident in their interference in the Arab countries." Without mentioning its deep grudge against the Arab nation, Iran maintains a grip on the destiny of the countries of the region. Hezbollah is the arm of Iran, not only in Lebanon, but also in the other countries. Unfortunately, I have realized that certain compatriots are working hand in hand with Iran, and are trying to force Lebanon out of its Arab environment. Glorious people of Lebanon, Hezbollah has succeeded, thanks to the force of arms, in imposing a de facto situation. I want to tell Iran and its acolytes that they have lost. The hands that clutch at the Arab states will be cut off, and evil will turn on those who use it. This dramatic text buries the religious Sunni, Shiite conflict and relaunches the racist conflict of the Arabs against the Persians. This is a form of progress, despite appearances, insofar as the occasions for war are more limited. The Sunnis and the Shiites live together, while the Arabs and the Persians are settled in distinct territories. In concrete terms, For Lebanon, this shakeup does not really change much. Above all, the text offers no indication of the reasons for the Prime Minister's resignation. Saad Hariri added that he was afraid for his life. Shortly afterwards, Al-Arabiya explained that a few days earlier, Hariri had escaped an assassination attempt. However, first the Lebanese police, then Lebanese General Security expressed their doubts by denying that they had any knowledge of such an attack. Al-Arabiya assured that Rafik Hariri, Saad's father, had been assassinated in 2005 by Iran, despite the fact that the same channel had persisted for years in accusing the Lebanese and Syrian presidents, Emil Ahoud and Bashar al-Assad, of having ordered the murder. Once he had finished his speech, Saad Hariri telephoned the Lebanese president, Michel Aoun, to inform him officially of his resignation. The conversation was very brief, and he did not answer the question as to why he had resigned. The Saudi Minister for Affairs of the Gulf assured that, contrary to what one might think at first, Saudi Arabia had not imprisoned Saad Hariri, and that he could return to Lebanon whenever he liked. Since the rumors of his arrest persisted, the Prime Minister's Twitter account shared a photo of him in a polo shirt, with the Saudi ambassador for Lebanon. Even before Saad Hariri had finished his speech, his rival, the ex-Central Director of the Police, FSI, then Lebanese Minister for Justice, Akraf Rifi, headed to Beirut from his Italian exile. As it happens, since Mr. Hariri is one of the most profoundly indebted people on the planet, he owes a personal debt to the Saudi government of about $4 billion, he is probably not in a position to take decisions which go against the interests of his creditor. At about 11 p.m. Mutq, Houthi rebels fired a ballistic missile, from Yemen, at the King Khalid Airport in Riyadh. It was intercepted by a salvo of Patriot anti-missile missiles. Since the Houthis' sophisticated weapons were supplied by Iran, observers made a connection between Hariri's resignation and the missile shot, and agreed that they all interpreted the operation as a response to Saad Hariri's anti-Iranian discourse. The seizure of power by MBS. Events began to speed up. A few minutes later, King Salman signed 2 decrees. The first placed the Chief of Marine Staff in early retirement, and also dismissed the Minister of the Economy and the Minister of the Royal Guard, the very powerful son of ex-King Abdallah, Prince Muteb. The second decree set up a commission for the fight against corruption, under the presidency of MBS. The press also announced the implementation of the new anti-terrorist law, which incidentally includes dispositions condemning offenders to prison sentences of between 5 and 10 years for any defamation or public insult against the king or the crown prince. Within the hour, the Commission for the Fight Against Corruption met and adopted a series of measures which had been prepared well in advance. 11 princes, 4 serving ministers and dozens of ex-ministers were accused of embezzlement. They were immediately arrested by the new commander of the Royal Guard, and some of them faced charges under the new anti-terrorist law. In the box were the 3 personalities who had been stripped of power earlier in the day by the king, including the ex-commander of the Royal Guard, Prince Muteb. We learned later in the day that the bank accounts of the suspects had been seized, and that if they were to be declared guilty, a simple formality, their wealth would be transferred to the national treasury. According to the Saudi press agency, the suspects apparently diverted money during the floods of 2009 and the coronavirus crisis, MERS, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, an accusation which may be well-founded but does not distinguish them from the other caciques of the regime. Although no nominative list of the suspects has been published, we know that Prince Walid bin Talal is on it. Considered to be one of the wealthiest men in the world, he was the kingdom's secret ambassador to Israel. His company, the Kingdom Holding Company, a shareholder notably of Citigroup, Apple, Twitter and Euro Disney, fell by 10% at the opening of the Riyadh Stock Exchange on Sunday morning, before its credit rating was suspended. Contrary to appearances, it seems that the victims of the purge were not chosen because of their functions or their ideas, which seems to confirm the official anti-corruption story. On Sunday evening, a helicopter crashed near Abha. We learned that several dignitaries died in the accident, including a certain Prince Mansur. The success of MBS, who has just overturned the oligarchy in order to install his autocracy, does not, however, guarantee his capacity to govern. Aged only 32, this entitled rich kid from a super-wealthy family has hardly had the time to get to know his people, and only entered politics 2 years ago. His first decisions were catastrophic: decapitation of the leader of the opposition and the war against Yemen. Having neutralized all those who could have stood against him within the royal family, MBS has no choice but to ensure himself of popular support in order to be able to exercise power. He has already taken various measures in favor of the young, 70% of the population, and women, 51% of the population. For example, he has opened cinemas and organized concerts, which until now had been forbidden. As from 2018, women will be allowed to drive. He will soon have to abolish the sinister religious police on one hand and the tutelage system on the other, both to satisfy women and also free men from this charge, making it possible to kickstart the economy. Above all, MBS has announced that he wants to transform Islam in his country and make it a normal religion. He has declared that he not only wants to modernize Wahhabism, but also to cleanse the Hadiths, the golden legend of Muhammad, of their violent or contradictory passages. This is a secular project which goes against the practice of the whole of the Muslim community over the last few centuries. This strategy prevents MBS from waging a war against Iran and Hezbollah, and gives the lie to the current official story. It is impossible to imagine a war against Tehran because ever since the Revolutionary Guard came to help the Houthis, Saudi Arabia has suffered defeat after defeat in Yemen. And it is also impossible to rally the Saudis to the flag while MBS is radically reforming society. Retrospectively, this palace coup had been announced a few days earlier. MBS had indeed declared that it was necessary to be ready for a change which would occur in the night of Saturday to Sunday. It is obviously impossible that the collapse of the Lebanese government and the decapitation of the Saudi royal family could have been organized without Washington's approval. An agreement was discreetly concluded with MBS that the public offer of the sale of Aramco would be launched not in Riyadh, but on the New York Stock Exchange. Furthermore, the anti-Iranian speech by Saad Hariri was preceded by a Washington campaign. Since 10 October, the Trump administration has promised rewards for the arrest of 2 commanders of the Lebanese resistance, and presented a plan against the financial activities of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, while Congress has voted no fewer than 5 laws against Hezbollah. By Thierry Mason for Laris Voltaire.